What up, my freaks? RuinusInsight here with part 2 of my Total War Warhammer 3 modded Imrik Immortal Empires campaign. So as we saw last time, a reasonably strong start for Imrik as he took the starting province, the Plain of Bones, and immediately moved to the Black Fortress and the destruction of the Legion of Asgore, considering they could have been very much a thorn in our side if left around for a long time due to the inherent fire resistance available to the Chaos Dwarfs. It was good that we were able to knock them out early. However, at the end of the previous episode, the clan Rictus Rats and the overlords of Jarduk Chaos Dwarfs both declared war upon us, and both share a border with us as well. So, not surprising, but annoying, as we will have to deal with them rather quickly, and that'll delay our conquest of the Dragon Isles here for at least another few turns. But conquer the Dragon Isles we shall. They quite literally have our name on it. Well, maybe not quite literally, but you get the idea. Anyway, in terms of what we gotta do this time, it looks like Imrik is ready to move to Darkhold and fight the battle there, presumably. Yeah, looks like a decent amount of work, so we'll be jumping on that. And then I guess we'll be pushing towards Clan Rictus and knocking them out. If I'm recalling correctly, in SFO, the defeat trait for Tretch Craventail is much better than it is in vanilla, offering speed for your entire army rather than only for the Lords. So it's certainly something worth acquiring, and I certainly wouldn't say no for more speed on those Dragon Princes. Anyway, I guess before we get started, we could grab this dragon encounter. We don't have to fight the battle. We can probably pick one of the options here. So we have... oh, it costs 2,000 gold, though. It's a little bit steep, but only a single turn worth of gold. I mean, I guess it's not horrific. Alright, so let's see what do we have in terms of options. So Brewer's Instincts give us a pretty darn significant buff, both for our weapons and our missiles. And of course you encounter the dragon again later. We just don't have the army to fight for the dragon right now. The other option would be to give us 70 influence for 2,000 gold. Essentially an influence for gold sort of thing. This would allow us to recruit one of the super-powered 100 influence High Elf Lords and allow us to start leveling them up early. Considering their... yeah, I think this is the one we're going to go for. It's the same reason that I went for that invocation that was giving us influence last episode, because it's you can get some really nasty lords when you do that. Perhaps not quite as nasty as the Names of Power Dark Elven equivalent, but that stuff is a lot more random than the High Elf one, so it makes sense that it generally gives you some more powerful stuff if you luck into it. Anyway, let's give this a read before we do this, though. You overhear rumors of a walking tree spirit dwelling in a nearby wood, so you go to investigate. You discover it as a treekin, a hulk of animated deadwood that tells you it already knows who you are. This is little surprise, since you know that within these beings reside the souls of dead wood elves, and you have encountered many Azrai in your lifetime. The treekin tells you it is the Herald of Brewer, a legendary forest dragon of great power, known to be worshipped and protected by myriad magical beings of the forest, as well as the Azrai themselves. Such a powerful dragon is worth reaching out to, but what message would you have the Herald send back to its dragon master? So we're going to go with bargain with the dragon. A dragon's influence is great. Bargaining for its affiliation will benefit our great name. And we'll encounter this thing again, at which point we will fight and challenge Brewer. But as I recall, we need a little bit more than just basic troops in order to fight this, and while we probably could take it, we'd take so much damage we'd be out of the running for a few turns, and we can't do that while we're at war with two factions near to us. So, bargain with the dragon for the influence, like so. The way I'm really tempted by that Brewer's Instincts buff, it's quite nice. This gives us 100 influence, and just to take a quick look... let's see, okay, Administrator is nice, it's that construction cost reduction minus 10%. Negator is really nice as well, and all enemies have lowered speed by 20%, and enemy spell resistance by 20%. However, it's not the mage's ones we want. Ooh, Incendiary, flaming attacks, weapon strength plus 40. And it's all nice, but yeah, it's not the mages ones we want, it's the reduction ones we want. Ooh, resilient, 20% hit points, ward save 10%, and immunity to contact effects. That could be a very strong prince. Dragon Willed gives the same type of upkeep reduction as Imrik himself does, at minus 20% for dragons. And on top of that, an additional 20% spell resistance for the entire army. And, yes, efficient. Efficient is really nice. It's basically a 20% upkeep reduction for all the lower tier units and some mid-tier units like the Shadow Warriors and Sisters of Avalorn. It's a really, really nice trait. I think there is also a smaller variant of it. I don't remember what it... Organized, maybe? Yeah, organized. Archers, Spearmen, so it's the same sort of deal, minus the Illyrian Reavers and Silver Helms. And it's at 10% instead of 20%, but still not bad. Let's check if there's anything interesting here as well. Strong Princess, not as useful perhaps because the princesses are the range lords as opposed to the melee-focused lords of the princes rather. Dashing gives us an upkeep reduction for two Illyrian Reavers and Silver Helms on top of buffing them quite a bit. Ooh, this would be quite nice for one of these armies actually. Ooh. Okay, I think we have to take this one. It's not as good as efficient, however, it's a lot of good stuff. It's a lot of good stuff. It's 20% missile strength upgrade for all range units and an enemy missile strength resistance reduction on top of all that, plus it being on a Princess Lord. Princess Lords buffing range stuff in general is kind of the perfect combination, and we may never luck into another one on specifically a princess. Whereas, for example, efficient, it doesn't really matter if it's on a prince or a princess, so I think we're going to take punitive. The question is where to take it. I think we'll pop you into the Black Fortress right away, and it's going to cost us, expensive 400 gold per turn. Huh. Wait, the princesses are 400 gold and princes are 250? That's interesting. Why? Because they're range? Nonetheless, we gotta do it. Gotta level you up early. I'm gonna be costly, but what can you do? Just out of curiosity, you can still get the various dragon mounts. And the dedications, the other stuff is standard. Alright, just want to make sure that we have you. We don't necessarily need you on the field right now, so we will disband you. And we'll probably start leveling you up in a little bit. And just had to make sure we have you on the field, but at 400 gold per turn, it's a little bit expensive. There we go. And just had to make sure that we had said princess available, and she will be back in 5 turns. Perfect. Alright, now after all that yammering on, we're heading to Darkhold. Not gonna level up Imrik because he's saving his points. And, oh, there's another army here. Oh, damn, I forgot to... Wait. Is it too late to switch stances? It is not. Noble Prestige. Perfect. Okay, you know what? I would like to move Theoden close. Actually, we can't move her close anyway. Alright, that's fine then. We'll fight without Theoden. There's a decent amount of orcs here, but it shouldn't be too problematic. Let's get to it. Alrighty, here we go. Last stand of the Darklands orcs. They fell for our trick, trap, whatever you want to call it, effectively last episode, and they will never recover from it. Anyway, we're gonna start the battle off by sending our Soul Sun Dragon out, and just trying to get a good shot lined up with it to get that fire breath on cooldown, just so that we can actually use it more than once per battle. Besides, the dragons do have a tendency to get distracted doing stuff, so we'll have that to consider as well. Anyway, a little bit more maneuvering, and there we go. These two units are somewhat lined up, enough at least for us to get that shot in. And there we go. Not too bad, clipping one unit and taking maybe 40% of their HP out. 47 kills and 9.3k damage. We have been getting annoyed by that darn unit of Night Goblin Archers, though the Night Goblin Archers doing less damage, but doing it more accurately than the Orcs, though they do have less armor piercing than the Orc Error Boys, so I guess that works. That said, at only 50 armor, the Sun Dragon is relatively lightly armored, but won't have to contend with these guys for too much longer as the Dragon Princes are moving in, probably looking up at that dragon flying above them with envious eyes. For those not familiar with the lore, the Dragon Princes are sort of a holdover, a relic of what they once used to be, or a shadow, I suppose, of what they once used to be. Dragon Princes all used to ride dragons, but the time of dragons is essentially past for the current timeline, or at least at the current time. Most of them are asleep, and the Dragon Princes now just ride horses rather than dragons themselves. So, yeah, too bad, so sad for them. Anyway, this is kind of related to that, to me ranting about the game, sort of demystifying dragons a little bit in the first episode / last episode there, in that they're really just not quite common. Alright, I'm gonna get a Burning Head off through the enemy battle line as they move towards us, but the Burning Head will completely veer away. You can't trust the spell. So I lined it up to go like this, and it went just directly towards our line. And damn you, Burning Head, why you do this? Anyway, it's going to move through our own troops, though fortunately with a relative lack of armor piercing, it won't do too much damage to our units. Taking about 30% of their HP maybe, but not actually killing off any models. Unlike the Gobos, which were completely devastated by it, losing 300 of them and taking 20k damage in a single spell. Out here, enemy Boar Boys have moved in to support those Night Goblin Archers. Foolish move, as the Boar Boys have no chance whatsoever against the Dragon Princes, even if they're on steeds and not on dragons. There we go, should be able to knock them out with relative ease, and then munch on some of those Night Gobbo Archers as well. The rest of the battle is going pretty darn well. The balance of power creeps up towards maybe 70% in our favor. Our range units, hardly surprisingly, are winning the range shootouts, and our melee units continue to hold the line. We've allowed the Spearmen to take the charge, and now that the enemy's charge has dissipated, we send in the High Elven Rangers to actually dish out more damage, as they're much faster at mincing enemy infantry than the spears would be, though the spears are doing reasonably well against the fragile Gobbos. Pretty big old battle line here. And there is still the Troll unit to consider, which is the best unit that the enemy has, and thus the Sun Dragon is going to deal with the Trolls with a little bit of help from those Dragon Princes, while Imrik continues to work on the enemy Lord. Charge right on into the back of those Trolls. Trolls also, with their very low leadership, should be forced to rout out of here relatively soon as they start taking damage from our elite units, and by the looks of it, they're turning and will be attempting to book it on out of there. With the Trolls routing, it looks like the enemy Lord is up next for Imrik. Let's see if he can get a few of those hits in while attempting to move through the lines of Gobbos. On just the regular steed, Imrik has unfortunately relatively low mass, and has been having a little bit of a difficult time actually running through the enemies, as we saw in the last episode. Fortunately, though, Meneathnir, his Star Dragon, basically the only Star Dragon awake in the lore, is I think he's acquired at rank 14 for Imrik. You'd usually expect such a strong mount to be acquired at a much higher rank, but yeah, we should be able to get that up and running fairly early, and then Imrik will have all the mass he wants. Speaking of mass, the Sun Dragon charges on in, and the Night Goblin War Boss will rout, and as soon as the Night Goblin War Boss routs, so does the rest of the enemy. No, wait. This Night Goblin Archer's unit is still there, but maybe a charge from the Dragon Princes and a little bit of extra blade work from the High Elven Rangers will make sure that they book it on out of there with the rest of their army. And there we go. Now the chain route is here. Oh wow, we used a lot of ammunition there. Huh, kind of surprising. And I wonder, does SFO have lower ammunition counts on units? Gotta look into it. I don't remember losing ammunition so quickly in early game battles in previous runs, but, well, we'll see. Experiment a little bit. Alright, very nice battle. Staunch spear line. Held against the onslaught of the greenskins pretty darn well. Well, we had to be a little bit more circumspect, a little bit more careful about the way that we used our Sun Dragon and Dragon Princes, and Imrik, I guess, himself, the single entities, as without the presence of Phaedian and that healing, they were more likely to take too much damage, and who knows how many armies of rats there are around. There's very rarely only one, so, yeah, had to do it in that way. We're gonna occupy the place as it is obvious, and with that, the Darklands orcs are oh lord. We have the Kane's Ring of Fury. This gives us the Bound Fiery Convocation. It's an insane spell to have as a bound spell. Granted, it has a very long cooldown, but it's an insane spell. And I guess our mage is going to be racking up tons and tons of kills with this one. Frankly, I'm a little bit tempted to give it to Imrik himself, but, well, he can make better use of the Talisman of Loek to buff himself up with that melee attack. Still, a very, very nice find. And a free bard as well for that casualty or punishment rate. Don't well, actually, no, Food Taster is nice as well. Since, for those of you watching the Kislev campaign, Gotrek somehow randomly got assassinated at level 21 by a weak and pathetic level, I believe, 5 Gobbo and Gotrek, mind you. And though I do find that hilarious, and I don't think I'm gonna forget that one. Anyway, what we gotta do here is rebuild Lost Splendor. We're probably not going to invest in either the Sentinels or the Darkhold, as they're likely to get taken over by an attack from these guys, and instead we'll spend as much money as we can on Black Fortress instead. Here, though, I imagine what we're better off doing is switching to growth, as our growth is still terrible, even with us focusing growth buildings, so we'll definitely want to push towards that. And we'll need to upgrade both the Fortress of Orag and the Bone Gulch as fast as possible as well, as they're going to make up a pretty big amount of money for our faction in general. Now, okay, so what we need to do with you is move you like this, so just far enough so that this army can't reach you. And I do believe they won't be able to go for you, at least I assume not, and then we'll have Imrik do what he does. He's at rank 8 now, but we're going to keep on holding on to the points for his unique line, plus dedication to Vol, or dedicated to Vol, I should say. Our Fire Mage Michaela, however, with that lovely flammable trait, it makes a lot of sense for a Fire Mage. Okay, so here's the question. Do we go for Flame Storm, which is fantastic at clearing rats, Piercing Bolts of Burning, which is fantastic at clearing everything, or do we get a point in Flaming Sword of Ruin, which is just generally a good spell? Lots of upgrade for a blob of units for 7 mana. I'm inclined to say let's go for the Flaming Sword. Get 1 in every spell, since we do have decent mana because of that Invocation of Lilith, or whatever it's called. Lilith's Blessing, rather. Close enough. And I think that's about all we can do. Diplomacy-wise, there's nothing that I see over here, at least nothing that we need to get into at the current time. But we'll have to keep an eye out on a few things. Fortress of Orag, you're switching your commandment. Howling Wastes, you're switching... Did I... Yes, you're switching your commandment as well. And I believe we're good to go next turn. Alright, end the turn. Alright, now, while the turn is ending, a quick note before I forget. I'm sorry for being a shill, but in case you missed the announcement in the community tab, the channel now has a Patreon and channel memberships available, in case you'd like to support my doing this full-time someday. I had so much fun running the 4 campaigns at once when I was on vacation, and now that I've gone back to sort of one-ish, I really miss it, so here we are. Anyway, quest has been issued. That should be Imrik's Armor of Caledor, and indeed it is. And more figure loss reduction. That'll put us up to 60% figure loss reduction on dragons and dragon princes, without considering any further buffs. It's quite nice, but it's probably not something we can fight until we can get a few more units. Vambraces of Defense, 15 ward save, 8 melee defense, and 8 armor. Yeah, you gotta remember that elves get some pretty darn crazy items, especially those, what are they called? Like the crafted items, the elven workshop, I don't remember what they're called. But you can get special items with them. Armaments of Vol, I don't know. Anyway, I believe I don't see any other armies or anything like that, so assuming that there's no buildings to build other than the Black Fortress, which we will build immediately, and I guess we'll build this stuff up afterwards next turn, Imrik can switch to none stance, or regular stance. Huh. Yeah, I guess he can switch to regular stance, and then we can proceed immediately to Mount Greyhage by the looks of it. And yeah, this is the big benefit of Imrik's own traits, giving him 20% additional campaign movement range. Most lords would not be able to cover this distance in a single turn. And damn, there's an army out here. Well, they can't turn towards it immediately. Let's go for Mount Greyhage. And is this... There's another army right here with Rickrick Sliceblade leading. I wonder where Tretch is though. Ooh, he has another Trickster Shard. Oh, if we could steal this, that would be just lovely. Now, are you able to reinforce? Okay, what we really want to do is reinforce, but also be able to put you into Mount Greyhage so that you can't get ambushed or hit by a Skaven ambush stance. So we just got to be careful about that. Alrighty, Imrik, you're holding your points. Fayadian, you can have Earthblood, reduce that cooldown. Can't wait to get Shield of Thorns, but we'll have to max out Earthblood first because it's just too good, and especially with all of this. And is there anything else we need to do in this particular turn? I don't think we do. I guess we could check diplomacy again, just in case. I'm close to that non-aggression pact with Karak Azul, though I feel like we should destroy them. What would Imrik do? And Imrik's kind of a jerk in the lore, so let's be real here. And also, I'd love to hear what you guys think on the matter as well. Now, there's been a lot of comments about pushing into Cathay because of the, because of the whole dragon theme that Imrik has. I do have one note about that, though. Technically speaking, actually, technically, there's really only one dragon in Cathay. Cathay and dragons aren't really dragons. I mean, you could debate it, but the only the only true dragon in Cathay is the Celestial Dragon Emperor, who's a Celestial Dragon, but he's the only one. Miao Ying and Jiao Ming are half-breeds, because the Moon Empress, the Celestial Dragon Emperor's wife, isn't a dragon. She's some kind of freaky shapeshifter from the moon, and nobody knows really what she is, and that makes the other Cathayan dragons half-bloods. And of course, the Shugengan Dragon Lords, or the Dragon-blooded Lords of Cathay, are basically humans with a little bit of dragon blood in them and don't even have a dragon form, or, depending on how you look at it, arguably don't have access to the same kind of shape-shifting powers that the blood of the Moon Empress offers to the other Cathayan dragon children. What I'm saying is, I don't know if Imrik would actually find most of the other Cathayan dragons to actually be dragons, and I'd love to hear Menaethnir's thoughts on the subject as well. But anyway, I digress, as I tend to do. Let's get into it. There is a lot of good stuff in the Cathan roster that we could probably use with our lineup as well, though I do like mix and match with High Elves and with Cathay. rather than destroying them. Plus, that way we could push into the desert, into Nehekara, and across the mountains as well. Anyway, let's think while we fight.
Knights of my great house, Ulthuan needs us now more than ever, for we are the absolute of its warriors. It is time for Caledor to rise once again.
Oh, they took that it is time for Caledor to rise once again line from his pre-campaign start as part of his pre-battle speech. Trying to get some nice shots of Imrik moving in with the dragon flying overhead as it should be. Anyway, pretty big old pile of rats to be found in this particular battle, but the big threat from them here is, well, maybe possibly the only real threat, is that Plague Claw catapult unit. So, we're heading right on in. Imrik and the Sun Dragon and the Dragon Princes are all going to move on in and go after that darn catapult. Well, I may be wrong in that it's the only threat. There's also the Warp Grinders, which, funnily enough, because of the armor piercing and high damage that they have, despite their fragility, would also be a threat to the dragon and to Imrik and to the Dragon Princes. So, gotta be careful with those, and that's without considering the Warp Quake and Seismic Snare abilities that they have. Of course, that's all not considering the fact that they're very, very fragile units, despite their armor, as they, like all weapons teams units, have a very low HP per model. And will be destroyed fairly quickly if we can get at them. Just gotta be careful about them getting a Seismic Snare out on the Dragon Princes. Anyway, the Dragon Princes, the Dragon Prince, and the Dragon did their work, and the Plague Claw catapults are booking it on out of there now. Doesn't mean we can't do a little bit more work, however, as we take care of a few clan rats, specifically Night Runners by the looks of it, who are going... Oh, Gutter Runners. Yeah, okay, the Night Runners wear black clothing. But anyway, they're going to book it on out of there. And we'll find a few more of the rats that are isolated and kill them off, too. A little bit of damage on the Sun Dragon, but Phaedian is with us in this particular battle, and if we take sufficient damage, we can simply fly right back to our main army and heal right up. Alright, very nice. Getting some nice air on the Plague Monks, the crew of the Plague Claw catapults. I wonder if we can beat the... Alright, it's going to be hard, but there was an absolutely incredible charge of the Winged Hussars in the Kislev campaign. Can we match such a single epic charge with a single unit of Dragon Princes, I wonder? Certainly going to have to attempt to pull something off. Though I think in terms of getting epic charges with cavalry, I think the best ones were still in the Lewin campaign, but that's also partly because there were so many of them. Alright, well, our main line, still waiting for the enemy to come on in, and we do have a pretty good setup all the way over here. We have some forests should we decide to hide a few units. Our High Elven Rangers are ready to protect the back line of the High Elven Archers, while our staunch line of Elven Spears will hold the rats at bay and hopefully allow us to cast our line spells, our wind spells, Fiery Convocation, and the Burning Head through the piles of enemy rats. That's the plan anyway. We'll see if we can make it happen. Anyway, our dragon, unfortunately, continuing to take a little bit of damage, just sitting there to line up another one of those fire breaths. But we got to get those on cooldown, so it had to be done. Even at the damage loss, dropping it down to about 40%. On the bright side, though, Imrik and the Dragon Princes continue to do work, even while the dragon moves on back to get some healing from our Life Mage. We'll get another charge in. These guys are probably getting tired by now. Oh, still fresh, huh? Alright, well, that's nice. Do they have a vigor per second enabled if in melee? Oh, interesting. Dragon prowess. Wait, so as long as these guys are fighting, they'll just recover all their vigor? Oh, well, that's just swell. That's effectively perfect vigor then, isn't it? Unless you lose more than 1% vigor per second, which... Actually, I don't know what the standard vigor loss is. I've got to look into that. Although I imagine it would probably be different in SFO than it would be in the standard game, as Vigor plays a pretty darn big role in SFO and is kind of meh in vanilla. Where in SFO, I'm generally terrified of moving in march stance and then getting attacked by full stacks, because your army will be absolutely crippled if they get hit while in march. In vanilla, it's really kind of not super relevant. There we go, another little charge. The Dragon Princes just practicing their charges on the rats there. And the rats with their low mass make pretty good targets for getting some nice air. Anyway, it looks like the first man, the army's taking a long time to reach our lines here, but it is allowing Imrik and the Dragon Princes to play around a lot in the background. Every unit that we can find that is isolated will get hunted down. And of course we can return to the main line once the battle proper has been joined. Alright, the first enemy unit that reached us is a unit of Skaven Slingers, or Gutter Runner Slingers, and to be specific, and they will get obliterated fairly quickly and by our archers, which I believe should outrange them very slightly. 150 versus 160? Yeah, that's about right. Alrighty, oh, and I guess we got 180 on the heavy arrowheads, or was it the other way around? No, the heavy arrowheads have 160 and the regular ones have 180. Alright, well, Imrik's up to 29 kills, the Dragon Prince is up to 227 and 25k in damage, 156 on the Fire Dragon, and 18k damage on it as well. Or Sun Dragon, not Fire Dragon. Fun fact, not the same thing. Sun Dragon is a subspecies of Caledorian dragon, the dragons that specifically live on Ulthuan and that are tied to the Elves. Fire Dragons also exist, but are a different thing. Though, admittedly, they look very, very similar. But anyway, I'm gonna move everybody together. The Dragon Princes have started to take a little bit of a beating down by about 20% of their HP, so we're gonna drop a few of those Earthbloods on them, as well as the Sun Dragon and Imrik, all at the same time. And here come the enemy rats, shields up as the High Elven archers let loose their arrow rain, and we continue to hold our very nice, once again, position. Been waiting for all those enemies to blob up nicely for our wind spells, and they've just been taking so long to get to us. And by the looks of it, a decent amount of them are going to turn before they get to our battle lines. Unit of clan rats will get ripped apart. And here come another one. Here comes another one. You know what I mean. That one taking a little bit longer because they had shields. Ooh, I see a warlord running in amongst the clan rats here. And by the looks of it, he'll be able to close the distance. I probably should have had the heavy arrowheads directly target the warlord instead of just letting them fire at whatever. But honestly, even when making cinematic battles and doing a replay, I have a bad tendency to get distracted at watching the spectacle, even knowing that I will still have the opportunity to watch everything afterwards when doing the replay. I do love the spectacle, so... Anyway, the Dragon Princes and the Sun Dragon continuing to be absolute menaces in the background and peeling away decent piles of the enemy army, similar to the sort of thing that you would do with with units of Skirmisher Cav, and just to sort of peel away parts of the enemy army. It's working out quite nicely for us there as well. Anyway, we activate the Flaming Sword of Ruin on our army, buffing up everybody's weapon strength and missile strength at the same time, as the rats have finally started to close the distance in, let's say, fairly decent numbers here. And of course, the enemy warlord or warlords, I think there's a chieftain or a couple of chieftains in addition to a warlord in here as well. Yeah, there's a chieftain, there's another chieftain, and there's a warlord. So that's quite a bit of potential damage coming in from them due to their ability to kill our spears with decent ease, and the spears not being able to do much about them. Anyway, Fiery Convocation is up and running. Very nice once again that we got that ring, and this is an extremely powerful spell. There we go, kind of like getting a wind of death through the enemy line. The Phoenix explodes the line of rats, and I think very, very slightly clips one of our units of spears, but yeah, an absolutely devastating effect from that particular spell. And look at the HP on the units that hit. This unit completely deleted, 674 HP left. This unit and this unit pretty much deleted as well. And that's with us keeping a little bit of a distance between our spears and the spell. Though the spell did seem to have clipped this unit a teensy bit, and yeah, killed off a few units. Definitely have to be careful with that one. Anyway, Imrik and his dragon and dragon princess are continuing to fight in the background, relatively unthreatened by the pile of rats. And a surprisingly nice fight here, I gotta say. A very much a longer battle with, like, little different elements of it, as in this little skirmish or sub-battle that Imrik's got going on. Or perhaps he just despises the weakness of the regular spears and such, as compared to the Dragon Princess and whatnot. Anyway, looks like the enemy's main line is in pretty bad shape now, though the bounce power is surprisingly only about 70% in our favor. Was looking like it should be a little bit higher to me. But not to worry, as the arrows keep coming down from on high, the spears continuing to hold, especially with the heals that keep on coming, and the damage bonuses. The battle should be ours relatively shortly, and the dragon has arrived, as well as Imrik. Each one's going to take an enemy chieftain and knock him out of the picture, as we just don't have the armor piercing on the spears to be able to deal with them otherwise. And I see Scurry Away activate on the enemy chieftain, who's down to half HP. A few pokes from Imrik's Starlands should send the chieftain scurrying. And I don't know if the Warlord is still in here, but I do believe... is that the Warlord? Yeah, that's the Warlord. And the battle is... well, actually not quite ours yet. There is still an enemy... Master... oh, no, it's just Quick Slice Blade. There's still the enemy main Lord here to deal with after all. Who's brought a fairly decent amount of units to play as well. Oh, I like his dark blue armor, though. Alright, not much to say. The rats keep on coming and they just keep on dying in droves, but, well, this is definitely one of the reasons you got to love fighting the Skaven. Here comes another fiery convocation. There's really nothing to use it on, so we just use it wherever. It might hit a few units, and it did by the look of it. Clip a few there. I'm surprised the enemy hasn't lost the necessary, there hasn't been like a critical mass for a chain route, because it doesn't feel like they have sufficient units anymore to even attempt to breach our lines. Our archers are going to target Rick now, who's lost about half of his HP, but will be able to close the distance with some of our spears, and take a few of them out prior to routing. Well, he's going to rout shortly as the Sun Dragon comes on in to make sure of it. And with Imrik joining the fray, Rick will waver, though it looks like a few more of his units will come back. Another Warlord, or perhaps it's the same Warlord that ran away earlier, but taking a fair bit of a beating this time around, and due to range attacks. But yeah, this does seem about right for fighting the Skaven. They have that tendency to rout and rally over and over again. Here comes a Burning Head, just because we gotta cast something. We still have mana left over. And getting Awakening of the wood in the midst of the enemy as well, which also applies a slow debuff to the enemy, so a few more arrows hitting the rats in the back. And there we go, at last the battle is finally fully ours, and the enemy will chain rout. Lovely. Apparently a close victory. I imagine we were very light on ammunition there. I also imagine that we did an absolutely ton of damage with our Fire Mage Michaela. Let's just see how much. Hey, we did manage to steal the other Trickster's Shard. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. That's gonna come in real handy. And 4.7 thousand rats traded for 72 High Elves. Pretty darn good trade in my opinion, though I'd think Imrik would probably say that not a single elven life was worth it in terms of trading for the rat scum there, but hey, what can you do though? Speaking of Imrik, just been listening to what he yells, you know, like when you click on units and they sort of yell stuff or answer you, etc, etc. One of the things he yells in combat is, it's either for the glory of Imrik or just glory of Imrik when he runs in, and I find this hilarious because well, he's talking about himself in the third person. He's not even saying for the glory of Caledor. He's just saying glory of Imrik. Screw all y'all. And the other thing he yells when he rushes into battle is, I am magnificent. I mean, he's not wrong, but he shouldn't say it. Yeah. I feel like the elves and the high elves and the dark elves share something in this regard, in that it's it's kind of fun to play them in just because of just how much of jerks they are. But anyway, arrogant jerks. Anyway, we got decent amounts of cash for that. Could have used a little bit more, but what can you do? And we'll occupy Mount Greyhage for ourselves. We also fortunately didn't take a lot of damage, meaning we could move Imrik out of Mount Greyhage, regardless of the fact that we needed to heal, and pop Phaedian in there as well. Sadly, he can't switch back to Noble Prestige. But oh well, not a big deal either. Anyway, we're rank 9, getting there to Caledor incumbent in that rank 12 that we're really banking on. And in terms of this turn, I don't think there's anything else. I imagine Scalpos is going to attack the Darkhold, but frankly, we could probably ignore it in favor of destroying the rats for good. And looks like Karazakarak is doing reasonably well here. Certainly better than I've seen them do in previous recent campaigns, so that's kind of nice. If we don't attack the dwarves, hear me out, I know guys, just hear me out. If we don't attack the dwarves, we could ally with them and leave them to hold this territory while we proceed this way, considering that the upcoming Kotep campaign will be, well, where Kotep is. We can certainly try pushing towards Nehekara instead of this way, allying with the ogres and the dwarfs. We could also maybe knock out some of the dwarfs and kill some of the rest. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think on that matter as well. Anyway, I believe we can uncollect the income here for a little bit. We're not going to build anything because, well, we don't want to invest in it. We do want to keep an eye on the growth in this territory, though, because we'll need to upgrade it as soon as possible. Diplomacy-wise, I know we already checked this turn, but we should check again. And I guess we're good to go. And how close are we to the return of the prince? One more territory, and then we get to start on Ulthuan. Hopefully Caledor itself hasn't fallen in Imrik's absence. I don't like how much vampiric corruption is there. It could be just due to the fall of Torsathai, though, because Count Noctilus starts here on the coast. I'm just going to hope that Val's Anvil itself hasn't fallen, as that would be quite the shame. But it's not like we could have taken the territories much faster than we did, since we've been conquering a territory basically every other turn, considering, you know, you have to move between territories as well. Anyway, let's end the turn, and let's see what happens. Alright, little mini cut there. Unfortunately, the game seems to have crashed during the end turn. Does happen on occasion, and frankly, the game had started hiccuping, and I probably should have followed my instincts and assumed that it was crashed. Sometimes you start dropping frames, the game starts behaving a teensy bit weirdly, and you know that a crash is eventually coming. I don't know if it's indicative of a memory leak or whatever, but anyway. I don't actually mind so bad when it crashes during end turns, because unlike the middle of a turn, you don't have to then replay the entire turn, wasting colossal amounts of time. End turn is just loaded back up and you're good to go, and good to go we are. So, new mission issued, capture many provinces, the Talisman of Safari as a reward. Nothing crazy there. Certainly could be useful on a mage, however, and a quest that we should be able to knock out relatively quickly. I noticed that Scalpo's Scuttle is here, and by the looks of it, Trudge Craven Tail is here as well, meaning Ashridge Mountains is, I would say, fairly likely to fall. We might be able to do something about this. Possibly. Depending. Well, A, it does depend on what's in his army, but B, it depends entirely on whether we can reach rank 10 with Imrik. As soon as he reaches rank 10, he'll be able to unlock 3 Regiments of Renown, which is a fairly considerable lineup to potentially add to any defensive force out here at Ashridge Mountains. We can't really do anything about Scalpos, I would imagine. There's just not enough defenders at Darkhold, so we're gonna have to let that one go, but I think it's a decent trade for the enemy's capital, so that's probably what we'll do. Then, Imrik, let's see what's going on at Crookback Mount. Oh, we could level you up. Ooh, wait, can you go into Noble Prestige? No. Alright, fine. Lilith's Blessing it is. Yeah, it'll cost us a little bit of vigor loss, but miscast base chance reduction and a little bit of XP extra for the spellcaster. Not the worst thing in the world. Alright, close victory. Ah, damn, they have a Plague Claw Catapult. That's a little bit annoying. Hopefully it won't be protected and we can send the Sun Dragon right at it to knock it out before we assault the walls there. Now, we will want healing for this, I would imagine. We will also want levels for this, so let's get you. I mean, I guess we could start... If I hadn't gotten that second point in Burning Hand, we could have gotten Flamestorm by now, which would have been nice. But I guess since we're spamming Burning Head against the rats, we may as well go kind of all in on it. Imrik, you're going to keep on holding on to your points. Phaedian, you are going to... was a reinforcement? Like so. I assume we'll be able to switch you to the prestige thing, but yeah, we're definitely gonna need your healing. Yeah, Lilith's Blessing, not Noble Prestige, rather. Then what we'll do is we'll take Imrik and we'll give him the other Trickster's Shard rather than the Talisman of Loic. I just think that the minus 25% spell resistance could be helpful in dishing out a little bit more damage via the mages of everybody around Imrik, or against everybody around Imrik. Then we'll see whether we let Ashridge Mountains fall or whether we attempt to defend it. Also, we're at 5 out of 6 on Return of the Prince, meaning if we take Crookback Mountain successfully, we should be able to Confederate Caledor, assuming, of course, that they're still alive. Before we get started, another quick note, as usual on this channel, and the previous campaigns at least, we'll be doing an engagement threshold type of deal to determine episode length. So, if this episode reaches 500 likes and 60 comments, the next episode will be an hour long. And as long as we maintain that engagement streak for many episodes, there will be double episode days every Wednesday and Saturday, basically 3 days as long as we pretend that Sunday doesn't exist. So keep that in mind if you are into that sort of thing, and let's burn some rats, shall we?
Knights of my great house, Ulthuan needs us now more than ever. For we are the absolute of its warriors. It is time for Caledor to rise once again.
Alrighty, here we go. Caledor rising, very far away from Caledor itself, mind you, but rising nonetheless. Anyway, we've got ourselves a siege battle, and wouldn't you know it, the dragon can just ignore those walls, flying over them and getting a nice fire breath into one of the enemy units, specifically an enemy ranged unit as they are, and definitely a threat to the relatively low armored Sun Dragon. Rather than waiting for the Knights and the Imrik and Imrik to knock out the enemy gate, we're going to head straight for the enemy walls. The 2 units of Elven Rangers will climb because they're faster than the spears and are already starting to do so, while we start annoying whatever enemy units we can up on top of those walls with the Sun Dragon, and hopefully allowing our various archers to do a decent bit of work. and got to soften up the, well, fairly large amount of rats behind the gate here. But also we got to take these walls as fast as possible to stop these darn towers from firing. Towers are being quite annoying here. Spears ordered to get their walls set up, pulling them out from who knows where, but they're taking a bit of time. It's always been a little bit buggy the way that units actually set up their ladders. There we go. Sometimes you have to like order them to keep on doing it over and over again. Anyway, big pile of rats found, and if there's a big pile of rats, we can get a big old burning head and moving on through them and dishing out decent bits of damage. The gate is down to about 1/3 of its HP. And by the looks of it, this wall at least will soon be ours, though at the cost of a decent pile of our infantry. Not to worry though, they can simply hold the walls while our more elite units start getting to work on the piles of rats. Once again, they shouldn't be particularly threatening to the Dragon Princes as long as we watch out for Warp Lightning spam from the enemy lord. And there's that fiery convocation coming in and getting a nice bounce, clipping the enemy unit, or clipping an extra enemy unit by virtue of bouncing off the terrain. This also clears a very nice area around the soon-to-be breached gate, and hopefully we can make use of it to start making our way inside the enemy city. One great thing about the early game sort of battles in terms of the sieges is obviously they're decently difficult because you don't have an easy way to knock out enemy towers and your units are all fragile, and SFO makes sieges harder. But also on top of that, there's the fact that early game sieges don't tend to be desynced ever because of the garrison building not being constructed, if that is in fact what causes that. Anyway, Spears, Dragon Princes, all led by Imrik, are now have now broken through the gate, and now just have to break through the rat bodies to reach the settlement proper. Here comes another spell, another burning head to, well, burn our way through as many rats as it can, and by the looks of it, veering into a fairly decent direction to clip a few extra units. Very nice. Alright, and lots of rats since scurrying away. The enemy still has that Clan Rictus Clan Stone, which I believe adds anti-large to them. Bonus versus large plus 20, a fairly considerable bonus at that. Gotta be careful with the Dragon Princes, perhaps. Though if needed, we can heal them and we can activate the Cascading Fire Cloak to give them a massive 40 melee defense for a little while. But it's not like these are halberd storm vermin that they're holding the line. Even clan rats with spears aren't going to be a huge threat to the Knights of Caledor. Here comes an Awakening of the Wood. We don't have the piercing bolts of burning to bombard the enemy, but that's still a reasonably damaging targeted spell into a blob. Awakening of the Wood, I mean. Alright, now there are, by the looks of it, some enemy units firing down upon us from on high, but we can hardly do too much about that at the current time. We have also peeled away our Sun Dragon, who is now starting to munch on the enemy Plague Claw catapult. Certainly don't want the Plague Claws firing into our blobs of units, especially outside the breach. And the Plague Claws do quite a bit of damage and can certainly hurt or kill off plenty of the Dragon Princes if we allow them to do so. Anyway, good job to the Dragon, and the Plague Claws are down to about half HP, and by the looks of it, the enemy won't be getting too much mileage out of them. Our Spears continue to join our Lances, and more rats fall around the breach. Our first of our units of the High Elven Rangers has also gotten off those walls. I'm glad that I made it a point to recruit them. And there we go. It would be unfortunate to never use the unit, and I mean, they outkill Spears fairly considerably. They're just super fragile. Anyway. You think you killed a lot of rats, and we, by the looks of it, have killed thousands, but, well, there are thousands more. I'm heading back towards the gate, and there's a bunch over here around the enemy lord as well. I'm willing to bet they're learning to very much fear and hate Michaela, though, who is just dropping those burning heads over and over again. And that was a pretty nice one, burning a path of destruction through the defending Ratlings. I really wish they basically did away with this effect. I really don't like this effect. Like, the visual aspect of it, it just seems unnecessary. And all it does is just slow down your units slightly. The snare net, 25% move speed, but you have this big, ugly net on every single unit. Just a little bit immersion breaking, but just I don't know, just a part of playing against the Skaven, I guess. Honestly, I'd love a mod just to remove that specific effect. I mean, there's a few really egregious ones that are kind of ugly and don't add too much. I mean, there's also just like a visual cacophony. That's an audio. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff going on screen with a million effects, and that's why I used to use the mod that lowered effects and removed the targeting runes. Unfortunately, it does, as I found out in the Kislev campaign, it does seem to be bugged in the sense that it doesn't seem to work with SFO, and that it interferes by the looks of it with some abilities. And particularly in the Kislev campaign, it was a pretty critical ability to the units there, so definitely something you have to watch out for. And I'm lucky I noticed it all, because it's not so, like, I just realized that the ability wasn't working. But otherwise, it's not like it was causing any crashes or anything like that, just a very important ability wasn't working. Anyway, we peeled away several of our units of spears, our High Elven Rangers and the Dragon Princes together to head up the hill just so that no more range rats can fire down from there, while Imrik will lead Michaela and a few spears to try to hunt down the enemy lord. Said enemy lord will of course begin that darn warp lightning spam, which always makes my PC very, very angry, as it can't quite cope with all those particle effects, I guess. While Imrik attempts to try to break through the line of rats and to get towards the enemy Grey Seer. But it looks like 1500 mass is just not enough. Like, he'll get stopped by Skaven slave slingers by himself, and is having a difficult time reaching the enemy lord, but that's not a huge deal, of course, as we will just kill our way through the remaining rats and get to the enemy lord that way. That said, the longer the lord is alive, the more it can do that sort of thing, dropping those warp lightnings on our spears, and by the looks of it, forcing us to swap damaged units of spears out. When our dragon has, well, basically completed its work on the Plague Claw catapults, which by the looks of it are rallying, and then had to take out a unit on the wall. And then we can send it towards the Grey Seer. Of course, the Grey Seer does have a Howling Warp Gale available to it, and could lock the Sun Dragon down in its place. Or in place, rather. You get some very, very strong early spells on the Grey Seer of Ruin. But we gotta keep clearing our way to him, and there's another fiery invocation there. Convocation? It's convocation, isn't it? Wait, who has it? You have it. No, you have it. Yeah, it's convocation. Alrighty. I mean, it is a fiery invocation, but the spell is called fiery convocation. Anyway, let's see. Just trying to get that to that enemy lord now. The rest of our units have fought their way through everything else, and I believe our dragon princes are now starting to loop around to try to get at this lord from the other side, but it looks like the lord has realized its doom and is beginning to chain route with the rest of the enemy army. One last charge from the dragon princes from this direction to cut off the rat lord's escape, and with that, the battle is ours. Sorry, Imrik, you were just never able to reach that Grey Seer, but once you have your own dragon mount, that'll be a little bit easier, even if, well, you'd be in danger from the Howling Warp Gale, if that was the case as well. Alright, here we go, moment of truth. Did that give us enough XP? Indeed it did. That gets us up to rank 10, which is exactly what we wanted. Looks like if you want to smell the smell of burnt rat in the morning, you bring a fire mage, as Michaela here got 2.3 thousand kills and 169 nice K damage as well. Very, very nice indeed. And the dragon no slouch at 420, also nice kills and 31k damage, and the dragon princess 555 and 35k as well. Our ringers certainly did well, and you know, we did take a little bit of damage on pretty much our entire melee infantry line by the looks of it. The damage was primarily, as we can see from the lack of kills on the enemy units here, was primarily due to the warp lightning spam from Ratmech, as well as the damage from those towers, and at least partially the refusal of our own units to actually climb those walls. They do have a tendency to do that. Anyway, decisive victory for us. We're going to occupy Crookback Mountain here. And hopefully that'll make the Skaven all the weaker. And there we go, that completes the return of the prince, giving us the option to confederate Caledor. Your allies in Caledor are ready to move and reassert your control, but they report a problem. The opposing houses, though pathetically incompetent in matters of war, have proven to be adept politicians, purchasing friends and allies across Ulthuan with luxurious gifts. Cracking down on the miscreants could result in a dangerous backlash against you. Galling as it may be, you could seek to counter their influence by expending your own, or you could allow the noble faction to remain in control for now and seek to restore order via other means. So we have so this is if we allow them a continued independence. We could get the Elven conflict, diplomatic relations minus 20% if we don't spend any influence. Minor amount of influence spent will give us no buff, and a major amount of influence at, well, 25. Influence spent will give us a plus 40. Relations with High Elves. I think we're going to take the biggest amount of relations we can get with other High Elves, simply because, well, if it offers us an early confed with any of the other factions, that would be real swell. So, favors abound. A sustained campaign of politicking should secure your position without conflict. Let's see if this was a waste of, well, influence, and if Caledor survives. I wonder if it still offers that thing if Caledor doesn't survive. I guess we're about to find out. Trait gained audacious for Imrik, enemy killed in battle. Free shrieking blade, a food taster, and okay, yeah, that's the control of and the return of the prince. We actually never gave this a read, did we? Okay, I'm gonna give this a read in a second, and oh, yes indeed, ooh. Huh, Caledor does survive, and we have a full stack, as well as a little bit of units here. Oh, look at our money, though. And Count Noctilus is right there, with a full stack, eh? What do we have here? A bunch of spears, bunch of archers, couple great eagles.
High Elven Archmage.
Can I offer assistance?
Well. That's tempting. Okay, let's give this a read. I gotta think about this. Your journeys have taken you far from Caledor, and so your control over affairs in the Court of Dragons has waned. A faction of nobles, callow fools with little respect for Caledor's martial heritage, has unveiled their ways into the halls of power. The fragmentary reports you receive from your homeland tell of a land fallen to dissolution and indolence, where nobles revel in luxuriant balls, even while vicious pirates ravage the coast. Case in point. Such behavior might be fitting of an Avalornian, but Caledor is a land of warriors. This cannot be tolerated. You must find ways to contact and mobilize your allies at home before action can be taken. Lovely. And the regiments of renown unlocked: Talons of Caledor, the Fireborn, and the Scions of Mathlan, ready for recruitment. That'll be basically all of our money, should we decide to attempt to defend the Ashridge Mountains against Tretch Craventown. Now, first things first, you, Imrik, get the dedication to Vol, reducing the upkeep for dragon princes in your army, as well as that income from industry buildings faction-wide. Not gonna be a crazy increase, mind you. Huh. Wasn't it already 733? Is it me, or should it not have changed? At least one building is industry plus 1%. Huh. Now, why are you plus 1%, I wonder? Hopefully it's not a broken... It says industry buildings, right? Oh, it's plus 1% faction-wide. Oh, for I thought it said 5% because this said 5%. I get it, it's fine, it's fine. Everything's working. I didn't realize how little it was. What the heck is plus 1%? Oh, man, honestly, that's more insulting than nothing. Now, what about this? This is pretty tempting. The only thing is we don't know what is exactly in Noctilus's army. How much movement would it take to get here? We could check out the army and what's in it, and then move back if it doesn't work. I kind of like that idea. So here's what we'll do. First of all, non-aggression pact with Eataine. No trade agreement. They're at war with Skullcrag and Scourge of Cain. What? Okay, if we declare war on Skullcrag, we can get the trade agreement. And all the other friendly stuff. A little bit of cash. Let's do that. Alright, and Safari wants in on it. No, we don't want to agree with Safari because they're in a war with Avalorn. And that was the only trade agreement that we could do, but that's fine. Alright, next up. Who are you at war with? You're at war with Tyrannok. Tyrannok, we're going to talk to you. We're going to join war against not Illyrian, but the Dreadfleet. And we'll get a trade agreement as well. Wait, how much money would you be willing to give us? 909 versus a trade agreement that would give us 72. I guess the question is, will Illyrians survive? Currently, they're being destroyed by Noctilus. If we really wanted to, we could not let Noctilus kill them. Or we could just let Avalorn or the Cult of Pleasure kill them. I really would prefer not to essentially allow Noctilus to get strong here. And frankly, we need to delete forces here because we can't afford all of these. Meaning, we have no choice but to attack Noctilus and then delete half the army afterwards. Alright, fine. Do the trade agreement. I'm just going to hope that you survive and hope that the other High Elves aren't pissy about us being friendly with you. Alright, and I guess we're gonna head on into the fight. So, you're in camp, you can switch, I guess, to Noble Prestige. We're going to move to towards the Thigh, and we're gonna see what's in this army. Alright, that all looks fine. Pyrrhic Victory, we've got... damn, they do have a mortar. Mortar? Oh, they have a garrison here. Yeah, I was wondering where the mortar was from. Well, that's not great, so it'll be a minor settlement battle rather than a field battle. Which would probably be at least some degree to the enemy's advantage. And depending on how it uses its stuff. Alright, fair enough. You're gonna move into Lilith's Blessing. Then, if we have any spare items, I guess we can give it to you. You have a Shrieking Blade, you can have a Talisman of Loek, I guess. And I guess we'll give you the Terrifying Mask of V. Alright, now, in terms of skills, you have Apotheosis and Inspiring Presence. Okay, we gotta make use of that characterial leadership effect, and you have Flammable as well. Ooh, wait, if we keep you 10% ward save for Phoenix units and Vigor Loss reduction, on top of eventually sending Michaela to join you for another 5% ward save and 10% vigor loss reduction, you can make a very powerful Phoenix army / fire army. Alright, I like it. I like it a lot. And maybe we can, you know, wrangle a few other flammable heroes. Anyway, I guess we're just gonna jump on into this, and Pyrrhic Victory, medium casualties, the Mortar, the Necrofex, and Noctilus. And the Zufbar 42 pounders are gonna be where the big problems lie in this battle. And let's see if we can take it. Go. Alright, here we go to look upon a high elven settlement held by the filthy vamp Vampire Coast is, well, it's not a sight that you want to see. Well, it's not a sight that the elves want to see. I'm a little bit biased for the vampires, but that's me. Anyway, we're gonna start the battle up, and it's nice to see somebody other than Imrik fighting in the early game as well. Very nice that we got a full stack rather than this entire faction and being dead. We also have 2 ringers here, being the 2 units of Great Eagles, which we're going to have to make as much use as we possibly can. Some of the bigger threats on the field are the buildings, like this tier 3 explosive damage tower, which the Eagles will hopefully knock down before taking too much damage from the enemy zombie pirate gunnery mobs with handguns there. It looks like the enemy's going to stream some scurvy dogs down the ramp and against our spears led by our prince. That is a fair few scurvy dogs. 3 units? Now 3 units all attacking our units at once, but it will allow our various units of archers to pincushion them. We've also set the archers up sort of away from each other so that the enemy can't use the Zufbar 42 pounders to too great effect and knock too many of them out at the same time. Now, we will still need to be relatively careful in this particular fight. Noctilus, besides himself, has a few ringers of his own, which could do a lot of damage if we're not careful. The depth guard with twin axes could probably rip apart several units of spears with little to no trouble. I'd actually be curious to see how many units of spearmen it would take to knock out a single unit of twin axe depth guard. And then of course there's the Necrofex Colossus, which is a danger in range and in melee alike. I believe there's a gunnery wight, and finally, while the Rotting Prometheans, the non-gunnery mob version of Rotting Prometheans, aren't super threatening. They're too defensive of a unit and aren't going to do too much damage, but they will screen the approach of the depth guard here, which will allow them to probably rip into our spears. And potentially our prince as well, the spears who were acting as his guard having fallen around him, and we're going to have to send more spears in. The enemy also had a unit of animated hulks somewhere in there, and they are certainly a threat as well. Animated hulks, I mean, even though they're made like... they're made out of ogres, they're undead ogres, but they function more similar to Chaos Spawn, as they have very, very low defenses, and, well, generally are more similar to Chaos Spawn in the way that they work. But they're a solid unit. I use them to great effect in my Aranessa campaign myself, and have a healthy respect for them and wariness for what they can do. Anyway, the enemy continues sallying down this ramp here and is doing a fairly decent bit of work, forcing one of our units of spears to rout and the next one to take damage, as well as hurting our prince. That said, we have our reinforcements arriving. The 2 High Elven archers don't matter nearly as much as Arwenil, our lore of high magic mage, who will be able to cast Apotheosis and heal both our prince and our eagles. Speaking of the eagles, they're flying around, having done a little bit of damage to some of the enemy gunnery mobs here. Any gunnery mob that is isolated is too fragile to defend itself, and the eagles, with their bleed application and their splash damage, should be able to kill them off fairly quickly. And let's watch them do a little bit of work, since we'll probably never get any eagles into Imrik's army, as who needs eagles when you have dragons, right? Oh, look at the eagles being on top of the platform. Kind of cute. Nice, found themselves a nice little perch to, you know, murder things from. Although I guess it's not technically murder, because these are zombies. They're already dead. Killing zombies is not a crime. Anyway, let's see what we got here. Great Eagles have taken a little bit of damage, most likely from the zombie powered gunnery mob, the regular one with pistols, rather than the handguns, as the handguns aren't quite able to fire off a shot. While the Eagles do their work, we can start making our way further up the ramp and repositioning our units of range, specifically to target that Necrofex Colossus, which has at last drawn close enough to start firing back upon us. Definitely have to watch out for that, though, as it can do plenty of damage, but it looks like because of its direct fire, it's going to have a little bit of trouble in doing a decent amount of work. Sad for it, even though it's gotten 36 kills so far, but by the looks of it, it'll be riddled with arrows and knocked out relatively quickly. There it goes. And down you go, fella. That's the starting necrofex for Noctilus, who won't be getting it back for probably quite the while. Still one of the coolest looking units in the game. Anyway, looks like our Eagles have been forced out of the fight. They were doing a great job against the enemy zombies, but were mobbed by a unit, or 2 units I believe, of Fellbats at once until the Eagles are routed. That's okay though, they routed with full model numbers, both have 4 out of 4 and about half HP, and with Overcast, Apotheosis has a very, very long range, so we can target them from like maybe half a map away. So they should be able to heal up and continue to do their work as long as they haven't lost models. And as long as they don't fly off the screen fast enough. Anyway, with the Eagles having routed, the enemy bats come down to join the fray as well against our archers, but fortunately we've left enough spearmen back here to still protect the archers, even though one of the unit did attempt to rout on out of there. The Eagles are going to take a little bit of a detour to knock out the enemy artillery piece, the mortar, so that A, it stops attempting to target our archers and spears, and B, because the artillery crew are gonna be able to do absolutely nothing about the Eagles attacking them, and there's no chance. The heck are you doing? Alright, the zombies having a little bit of a dance party there. Anyway, artillery crew for Vampire Coast, extremely fragile, and down it goes. Anyway, more zombies. Where that came from, of course, it is the nature of fighting and the undead. And there's just lots of these deckhands mobs attempting to, well, mob our units of spears, still led by the Prince, who has very bravely been in the midst of the fight the entire time. Got about 41 kills on him and 5k damage, not too bad considering he's an infantry lord. And just has to slowly but surely hack his way through those mobs of zombies. Here come the animated hulks, however, as well. They have, that very low melee defense, but apply Bone Crusher and lower the enemy's melee defense on top of having relatively high melee attack in the first place, in addition to their splash damage. Gotta try to focus them down. On the bright side, our staunch lines of spears have their anti-large as well, so should be a little bit more effective against the animated hulks than perhaps lines of swords and such would be. Not that we have a bleak sword option, as we have High Elven Rangers instead, and they wouldn't be acting as a front liner anyway. These guys are still holding the line quite well. For my Aranessa campaign, I used these guys combined with the zombie-powered gunnery mobs with bombs as an army, and it worked very, very well, because the bombs are splash damage, but they're not really threatening to the units of animated hulks, so they obliterate all the infantry near the animated hulks, but don't really do too much damage to the hulks themselves. Very solid combo. Anyway, more zombies where that came from. I think I've said that already, deja vu, but, once again, there's probably plenty more where that came from even now. And yes, indeed, wow, these guys, well, they certainly had a lot of units in the settlement. And the issue with this is going to be that we're starting to run out of ammunition. We've actually, in fact, run out of ammunition on almost all of our archers now. 1, 2, 3 units still have ammo remaining, and that probably won't last too much longer. Once again, definitely gotta put some hurt on the enemy with the Eagles, and make sure not to lose them, as they're pretty critical here. 21k damage, 167 kills, 68 melee attack with bleed as well. They're also pretty solid at surrounding single units and dishing out a lot of damage to them. We'll probably make some good use of them in that regard, like for this Vampire Fleet Captain, who's very difficult to spot in the midst of all this. There we go. But all the Eagles together, plus our Prince, are attacking said Vampire Fleet Captain, who probably shouldn't have moved here alone without Noctilus there to help. And now the Vampire Fleet Captain can't escape, and by the looks of it is even having a very difficult time attacking, possibly due to the mass of the Eagles, and will begin to melt away before returning to their watery grave, or ground grave, I guess. Well, we'd probably send the corpse out somewhere, or burn it. Something. Return to some kind of grave. Anyway, looks like with that, the breach into the enemy settlement has been more or less clear, or the ramp. The Eagles still have work to do, however, and will go forward to attack these zombie pirate and gunnery mobs, and we'll just keep that apotheosis up on them as much as we can to get their healing. And damn those pistol wielders still firing into the Eagles even as they're attacked. Certainly makes these guys so much more threatening to the Eagles than the regular gunnery mobs are. And yeah, this one's taking a decent bit of damage just from that. Definitely have to be careful. Ooh, looks like a Wraith Storm just hit the spears there. This was one of our full HP units held back in reserve, and the Wraith Storm took about, I don't know, maybe 60%, 55% of their HP, and we're going to have to swap them out immediately with another unit of spears. And we are starting to run out of units of spears with decent HP as well. Using Soul Quench on the enemy unit of zombie pirate deckhands mobs just to do a little bit of extra damage, but I mean, 11 kills and 2k damage, nothing too crazy. Unless the enemy was blobbed up in a much bigger blob, it's probably not super useful to do that. Best save the mana instead to just spam Apotheosis, like we've been doing throughout the fight. Had some damn solid fights this episode, though. Both the siege against the rats, and I guess the field battle against the rats, and now the siege against Noctilus. And plus of that was a field battle and a walled siege battle and a minor settlement siege battle. Love it. And I'm also ignoring the fourth battle, the one against the Darklands orcs, but you know. They're dead and never need to be mentioned again. Alright, and here come our eagles flying and charging into the back of the enemy zombies there. Hopefully that morale shock and the remnants of our arrows will deal a decent bit of damage, though the enemy is firing back at us, as well as another unit of handguns has moved up and is targeting our eagles all the way from over here. Looks like our prince is starting to rout at last, having been fighting for quite a long time and taking damage, and one of our eagles are sufficiently damaged by the enemy fire as well. Definitely gonna have to apotheosis them back up, though once again, fortunately, they haven't lost any of their models. Really looking out on that one. Out here, we've also peeled away a few units of our spears. I actually kind of regret doing this with a full HP one. I didn't think that the rest of our units would get hit so hard. That Wraith Storm really hurt, but I suppose these guys can at least move down here and take out these zombie pirate gunnery mobs with handguns units without having to rely upon our eagles to do so. As they're otherwise kind of stuck winning the fight for us, as we have, I think, one, maybe two units left with ammunition now, and all those High Elven archers are basically stuck just standing around. Alright, bloody shields and bloody spears, but the spear line is undaunted. And we have to push those zombies back to the ocean. And what is that, I wonder? Is it another Wraith Storm? It's another Wraith Storm gonna come down, and this is going to hurt yet again. How many of those did it have? Damn. I hope they don't... Was it 3 uses? Because they're doing quite a lot of damage. And they're using them on our infantry, our melee infantry, which is really smart of the AI, because our archers are also just standing there, and without ammunition aren't going to be particularly effective. I'm going to hold the line a little bit with their melee defense, especially while martial prowess is buffing them up, but still. They just don't deal enough damage. In melee, I mean. Anyway, it looks like we've no choice, and it's time for the archers to get their little sidearms and their bows into the melee action. And hopefully we have sufficient numbers to knock out the enemy deckhands mobs. Noctilus himself has arrived as well, and we can't be fighting him with our prince, who will get very quickly ripped apart if we let the two face off. Okay, damn this arch. I really wish the camera could move through it. There was really no reason for the arch to block off the camera, but I guess it's because it's a physical object, so it can block artillery pieces and all that sort of jazz. Anyway, Noctilus, even though he has joined the fray, and even though he's most definitely a threat, will begin to rout as the rest of his army begins to rout as well. Out here, the spears have caught the isolated unit of the deckhands mobs, who are foolishly moving by themselves in to prevent the spears from capturing that one key location. Out here, we have more spears that were charging around, and by the looks of it, 2 of them got sent to running by the enemy gunnery white. And yeah, I guess you have the bomb chuck ability, Cackle Fruit, or Bomb Throw, either one, which was what enabled it to send the spear units running away. And Nocta's gonna pull off a few spins to win, but he won't be winning this day. And we'll just let the spearmen sort of do work on him while we wait for the rest of the enemy army to be destroyed, and then for Noctilus to melt away. Why bother sending the prince who will get killed by Noctilus if we can just mob him with the archers who are out of ammo? And there we are. With that, the battle, a very long battle, and that is very much ours. Certainly took quite a lot of effort. We got a ton of damage on pretty much everything. The Wraithstorm obliterated several of our units of spears, but nonetheless, it was a heroic victory, and well done to this prince. Alright, very nice battle indeed. We got a lot, and I mean a lot of mileage out of those great eagles. The bleed that they caused, and the fact that they were able to fly over the enemy walls and such to obliterate various units of handgunners, the mortars, and just generally annoy any isolated units. Decent work from our prince, who got about 10k damage himself, though I think the MVP of the battle has to go to the mage, because the apotheosis on the eagles and the prince, keeping our single and low entities alive, was critical to that particular victory. Obviously, we're gonna occupy the place, and enemy armor -5 for enemy armies in the region, and then leadership when fighting Vampire Coast and when fighting at sea. Not too bad, I should say. Not great, but, you know, not horrible either. A Raven Keeper, I mean, not horrible specifically against these guys, and we do need to keep on fighting them. Ooh, I guess that also means that we can't delete you for at least a turn until we retake Avathir. Get real friendly with Tyrannog by trading it back to them, but I don't know. It depends on how much money they'd be willing to give us. The other elves might be angry about us being friendly with Tyrannog. I'm not 100% sure. I know that they hate Safari, because Safari is always in wars with Avalorn, but I guess we're going to have to find out. And there we go. Many provinces have been captured, giving us the, ironically, Talisman of Safari, and the entirety of the Caledor province is ours as well. You know, eagles are reasonably cheap in terms of cost. We could probably build a couple more of them as ringers for this army. Certainly a thought, but either way, we'll have to deal with that and the ensuing rat hordes. And next time around, as folks, we are out of time, and I'm gonna have to call this episode here. And I wonder if there would be value in popping one of the invocations as well. Anyway, next time we try to move back towards Trudge Craventail. Most likely, the other option would be to potentially summon those regiments of renown, risk them dying, and instead move Imrik to Mount Silverspear. That would leave these guys in a pretty darn weak position, and I'm sure they wouldn't actually be able to afford their armies if they lost their only settlement as well. Though sadly, it looks like Imrik wouldn't be able to reach it in a single turn. I'll have to think about that one. Either way, plenty more High Elves / Dragon Daddy to come, so stay tuned. Don't forget to leave those likes and comments below, especially to Threshold. All glory to the algorithm. And thanks for watching.